My name is Collin Chartier. I'll be going through the WADA Prohibited List for 2026. I just got this email in the inbox last week about it. Thought I'd go through it all as an athlete, former athlete myself, who's been suspended for doping for EPO. I think this would be helpful for athletes currently who don't know what these products are. Maybe they can avoid certain unintentional doping by avoiding products. And yeah, maybe just looking through what these are and what these aren't as objectively as I can. So let's get right into this. We got the first page. It looks like we got 26 pages to go through. Let's get right down into it. That's a difference here. Some people don't realize that there are some drugs that are prohibited only in competition, and that starts at 11:59 the night before the race. And then there are some prohibited at all times. Interesting here, we have a little bit updated on substance abuse. So certain drugs like cocaine, heroin, MDMA, and marijuana THC, these are considered substance abuse. So if you are taking them outside of society, you can kind of appeal to that if you do get caught for those. And there's a whole program they'll bring you through for their, I guess, substance abuse program. You get a delayed or a lessened doping ban. So these are the non-approved substances prohibited at all times, in and out. So this is saying anything that they don't know about is banned. This one, they're saying anything clinical development, discontinued, designer drugs, and substances approved for veterinary use, which a lot are, prohibited at all times. This covers, this is a big one. This class covers many substances, but not limited to BPC 157. Hot peptide right now. I've used it many times for healing, for injury recovery. Currently, as far as I know, there are no tests for it. And it's very easy to get. Will it improve your performance? No, but it'll help you recover from an injury. Then we got a bunch of other stuff here. What is all this? Ryodine receptor 1, blah, blah, blah. Let's look it up. Let's look up what these are. This is the best way to go through this document. It's like, oh, I don't know what this is. Let's figure it out. S107 drug. Here we go. S107 chemical compound, potential treatment for ryanodine receptor related disorders, and as an athletic performance enhancer. There we go. Enhances binding of calcitabin, reduces calcium leakage from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, so it can help treat cardiac arrhythmias. It was banned in 2011 by WADA as a potential performance enhancer. And to detect it, right, so we're going to look at gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, and liquid chromatography, tandem mass spectrometry. Very, very niche, very specific tests. These are not the standard doping tests. So it would not come up in their standard doping test for urine, because you'd have to fail one of those things, or they'd have to have reason to look for that drug. So like this is, when you look at that GCMS and that long one, you'd have to already have a hunch they are taking that to even look for it. So interesting. I don't know how effective it is. Never heard of it before, but just an example, that's how you can look up anything you don't know about. So let's head on down. Anabolic agents. There we go. We know a lot of fighters, Olympic weightlifters. That's this class of drugs typically for them. But, we've seen plenty of runners on testosterone, plenty of runners on this one here, nandrolone. That's the tainted burrito. So there's a lot of different classes here. These 5A andros, those are like basically pro hormones. They're not quite anabolic steroids, but they're It's like DHEA. It's like a supplement that you can take. So this is where you got to be careful with testosterone boosters because of all this crap that's going to be in it, and you can test positive for it. And it's fairly easy to do it. I'll explain the doping test for anabolics. So your standard test that you're going to get is just out of the blue, out of the competition, or it's after a race. They're going to mostly be looking for the testosterone to epitestosterone ratio. Let's see where we can find that. General anabolic testing. All right, so we go to the urine. It's the most common and most accurate method for steroid testing. And then right here, this is the first thing they're looking for. Testosterone to epitestosterone ratio. The standard is 1:1. So when you have your testosterone that's natural, your body's naturally going to produce epitestosterone, typically about 1:1. And there are normal anomalies to this. And then WADA will screen right here the investigatory threshold of 4:1, meaning testosterone is 4 times the amount of epitestosterone. So when that's flagged, now they're going to do a deep dive. Now they're going to go into, here it is, gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, the gold standard technique for detecting anabolic steroids and their metabolites. And they're mostly testing for their metabolites, and that's how they will get you. All right, so right there, testosterone, epitestosterone. If you fail that ratio, then it's going to trigger a deeper dive. Let's get back into this. All right, into the boldenone. I've heard of this before. I've looked up a lot of these. These are veterinary steroids used in cattle and horses. And a lot of people in the gym are taking this. Boldenone, I don't know. Most of these I've never heard of. Bodybuilders are going to be the main thing you're going to be doing here. Are using these. And then we got testosterone. All right. Testosterone is widely abused. Many different ways to take it. There's all these different esters. Some are very short half-lives in the body. Like when their esters chain is short, the body will process it very quickly. And then there's long ester chains like sustanone is going to be there, more stable levels of testosterone because it's slow. It's like a slow release. And then there's pills, there's creams, and there's gels. And yeah, I mean, you can use testosterone gel that's been used for ages in athletes, especially endurance athletes. There's all sorts of controversies around Nike Oregon Project finding testosterone gels at training camps. Same thing with Team Sky. Dr. Froome had ordered testosterone for athletes. Again, no athletes ever got caught, but interesting that their coaches and doctors were ordering it. And that's because they were not being caught in doping tests. Here's another one, epitestosterone, right? That's what we looked at, testosterone versus epitestosterone ratio. They're banning epitestosterone, which has no performance effect at all. But because athletes are using that as a cream, right? If they're taking testosterone, now their levels are increasing, you can put epitestosterone on so you have higher levels of epitestosterone. That way you're still at the 1:1 ratio and you're not going to flag that further test that's going to go take a deep dive to what you're taking. All right, so there's so much here with testosterone, and also this standard test, gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, is not going to catch testosterone because we already have naturally producing testosterone in our body. So if the TE ratio, boom, you've exceeded 4:1, maybe you're 10:1. Now we've done GCMS, nope, nothing there. So you're not taking any other kind of other anabolic agents other than just testosterone. There's another test that you have to confirm. The carbon isotope ratio mass spectrometry. This technique is used just for endogenous anabolic steroids, meaning ones that are produced naturally in your body. And so this will look at the carbon isotopes, whether it's carbon 12, carbon 13, how it ends. And then they'll be able to like, oh, this guy's taking artificial or non-natural testosterone. So yeah, it's very specific. There's a whole chain of events that happen to detect something like that. Most of these things, if you're an endurance athlete, you're not going to want to take because you're going to get too big. You're going to, you know, get jacked and then not be able to run fast, not be able to bike fast. So, but if you are, a strength athlete, you're looking to just gain mass, there are healthy ways to take some of these, and especially with the guidance of a doctor, because there's plenty of clinics that will help you get on TRT, hormones, peptides. And it's actually funny, now that I'm retired and banned from the sport, I actually have access to so much more doping than I ever did as an athlete. I can know several people I can just walk in and get on as many peptides and different TRT substances I'd want, but I don't want any of them right now. The Enhanced Games coming to Vegas 2026. Really stirring the pot here among WADA, USADA, all the anti-doping agencies, the Olympics. I actually got to talk to Rick Adams, the SVP of Enhanced Games, former 12-time serving on the U.S. Olympic Committee. He was telling me about how the Enhanced Games is not trying to be just another Olympics, but with doping. It's not a free-for-all. It's actually about athletes first, athletes' safety. The statistic that has been said and heard is that in the 2011 World Championships for swimming and track and field, there's an anonymous survey saying that 57% of elite athletes admitted to using a banned substance, prohibited substance, in that year. So knowing that many of the athletes are already doping, but not doing so with the education, with the support team, with doctors. Dr. Dan Turner is the head of sports scientist at the Enhanced Games. So really it's about education and having, hey, we know you're already using this stuff, let's do it in a safe and effective manner and have proper monitoring programs. At the Enhanced Games, they're going to be doing $1 million if you break a world record and paying everyone who goes minimum $25,000. So, and then prize money for the race is $250,000 on top. So I think there's a quote that Travis Tygart from USADA, which I had a great conversation with when I got suspended. He is not for this. He calls the Enhanced Games a clown show. That is putting money first instead of athletes, which, in my opinion now, I think USADA and anti-doping agencies are putting money first and athletes second. And Enhanced Games are putting athletes first by paying appropriately and giving them proper guidance, athletes first, and then profits second. Let's keep going down the list. You got S1, 2, that's other anabolic agents. Interesting here. We got clenbuterol. There we go. That's Alberto Contador case right there. I have used it myself, became very jittery. It's actually like a weight loss drug. So keeping yourself like really burning fat while maintaining muscle. But definitely not good on the body, on the heart. It is used in cattle, not approved. Should not be used for humans. I would not take that again. And then we got SARMs. These are very popular in the fitness industry right now. I just talked to anyone at the gym. They're likely taking SARMs. I have taken this one here, RAD 140. I've heard of this one, but these are all if you're competing as an athlete right now and being tested. These are a no-go. You should not be taking any of these. Athletes have tested positive for those, so they are testing and they're easily tested for. But yeah, if you're not being tested, I think this one is a great one instead of taking TRT or testosterone, because you can elevate, get a bump in testosterone without shutting down all your endogenous testosterone. So relatively safe. I mean, obviously, if you take high doses, that's not going to be the case. And relatively easy to get. I mean, all of these right here, you can order online. LGD 4033, RAD 140, S23, Wakela. I've seen them on all the sites. Yeah, let's keep going. S2, we got peptide, hormones. Yeah, there we go. This is EPO. That's what I got caught for right here. Erythropoietin, ESA, so it stimulates erythropoiesis, increasing red blood cells in the body. Why do you want red blood cells? Because you have greater oxygen carry capacity, higher VO2 max. You can then work harder, recover faster. And there's not just one, there's many types of EPO. Now I can look back and be like, it's really stupid to take EPO. You should never be taking EPO. Because look at all this. Look at how much other stuff you could be taking that's just like EPO, much harder to test for if they have a test at all. So don't do it. Darbepoetin, that's just another. Basically, EPO is this protein chain of amino acids, and you can vary them just by little bits and still keep most of that chain intact. And then now there's darbepoetin and alpha poetin and theta poetin. There's beta poetin. There's so much variations here, but generally those tests are going to show any kind of recombinant EPO in electrophoresis. So you'll see endogenous levels of EPO, and then there's like these black markers, and then they'll show exogenous ones in slightly different color. That's how they'll catch you. They're basically saying any kind of EPO is banned. All the types. SARA, they have a specific test for SARA, so don't ever take that. EPO mimic agent. These are the interesting ones. EPO mimic agents. When I found out I had the adverse analytical finding for EPO, I went and told my doctor in Spain, and he was like, "Whoa, that's so stupid. Why would you be taking EPO? There's so many better products that can't be detected." I was like, "Oh, okay." Well, I didn't know that. Thanks for letting me know. And this, I don't know, maybe it's referring to this. EPO mimic agents and their constructs. This would be interesting. I'm going to look this one up. CNTO 530. CNTO 530 experimental erythropoietin mimic peptide EMP, considered prohibited because it boosts red blood cell protection. Is very similar to EPO, enhances athletes' endurance. Yeah, so that one, evasion of detection. The fact that CNTO 530 has no sequence homology with natural EPO makes it more difficult for traditional anti-doping tests to detect. This has led to development of new testing methods specifically to identify EMPs, but those methods are not routine checks. They're very in-depth. So you would have to exceed your hemoglobin mass, like on a blood panel. You have your hematocrit, percentage of red blood cells, and your hemoglobin mass, and you'd have to exceed that barrier. And then without testing for EPO, maybe they'd find it, but you'd have to do a deep dive into testing for it. As far as I know, no athlete has tested positive for an EMP, and specifically for this one. These other ones I have not heard of. Now we keep going down. This gets interesting. Hypoxia inducible factors. So there's like activating agents, which then increase red blood cells, which is cobalt. Cobalt's just a natural thing you could take. You can order it online. I've seen this one before. I'm not even going to try to say it. Reduxistat. Now, I believe an athlete has tested positive for this. And then xenon. Interesting. Xenon gas. That was a big thing. The Russians were using that during Sochi. And I think recently someone climbed, a whole group did a speed climbing of Everest using xenon gas. Let's see. Xenon gas used to climb Everest. Early 2025, recently, used xenon gas to rapidly ascend Mount Everest by inhaling it through mask as pre-expedition artificial acclimation technique. Interesting. Uh, it is this method is controversial. Benefits are debated, but xenon gas boosts EPO and stimulates red blood cell production, improves oxygen transport, exactly what you need to top of Mount Everest. Now, are these climbers considered dopers? I don't know. They're not tested. Xenon gas. There's no test, as far as I know, for xenon gas. This one, no idea what that is. GADA inhibitors. Let's just quickly see what this is. Regulates gene expression, immune cell development. How is that related to doping? I have no idea. Improves oxygen carrying capacity. It's comparable to EPO. There it is. So if you use these ones, K11706 and K7174, these are GADA proteins, enhance athletic performance. Where do you get these? I do not know. But one key thing is if athletes are not testing positive for certain, then they're not testing for it. Highly unlikely they're testing for this. Don't know what those are as well. Now we have the innate repair receptor agonist. So Acilo EPO is basically the EPO, but it doesn't increase red blood cells. It does everything else it does. Carbon-related EPO. Why is this considered doping? Because it says it does not have the same red blood cell boosting effect as regular EPO, but it's banned for its potential tissue protective properties, which can aid in recovery and mask doping. Interesting. I did not know that. Can mask doping. How does that work? The use of a substance to aid recovery is a form of doping. Acilo EPO can be used to support recovery from the negative effects of other prohibited substances. That's not very clear. I would not be worried about that. I wouldn't be wasting your time. Let's keep going. Here we go. We got peptides. This I know a lot of people take after or while they're on TRT or after TRT. The chorionic gonadotropin increases your testes production of testosterone and luteinizing hormone. So that, unfortunately, guys, is banned. Don't take it if you're competing. Yeah, there's a lot of these peptides. Kisapeptin, I've taken that before. What does it actually do? I thought it was for sleep. Kisapeptin, increasing circulating follicular stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and testosterone levels in humans. Interesting. And it's agonists and analogs, which they don't specify. This is kind of that language of, hey, we don't really test for any of this. And so we're not even going to bother to say like what these agonist analogs are. I don't know these. Corticotrophins, growth hormone. Guess what? You cannot take human growth hormone. It is tested for recently. Let's see, what was it? There was a cyclist who got caught in Spain at the airport for some kind of growth hormone. I remember this in 2022. And then nothing came of it. Like, at the time, and I looked him up. Miguel Angel Lopez. What happened to him? And I remember he was winning races afterwards. There we go. I want to show this one. He got a 4-year ban because he had use and possession. So he goes to the airport, Spanish authorities find stuff in his bag, whatever. It's called menotropin, which is a type of growth hormone before or at the 2022 Giro d'Italia. Menotropin is a female fertility drug that can stimulate production of testosterone in men. So he finished that race. And then he got a ban later. I guess he tried to appeal his ban, but he had clear evidence. Use and possession is enough to be banned. And we saw that in Icarus, that movie, right? So if you have video, photos, and audio, whatever actual proof of doping, you can bring people down. You can bring whole countries down. And because that's why I was sitting down, this guy from the ITA who caught me flew me out to Switzerland, and we had a private one-on-one where he offered me a 1-year silent ban. Right, so there's a bunch of stuff going on, and I mean I've heard of those before, but actually, if you're an athlete, you should be furious that there are such a things as 1-year silent bans. No disclosure at all. These kind of silent retirements, and it is in your WADA code. It's very clearly in the WADA code right here. This is the WADA code. I pulled it up. This is a very important section. All right, this is section 10.7. I brought this up to them. I was like, this is not fair to anyone, to any athletes competing, because this is just basically saying anti-doping agencies can do whatever they want and keep the public from knowing. So WADA may agree at any stage to what it considers to be an appropriate suspension. WADA may agree to suspensions of the period of ineligibility and other consequences for substantial assistance. It's very subjective. Greater than otherwise provided in this article, or even no period of ineligibility, no mandatory public disclosure, and or no return of prize money or payment of fines or costs. Wow. So right there, basically saying silent bans, 1-year silent bans, 4-year silent ban, any of that, early retirements are all allowed. Now, they were asking me about other triathletes I was close with, never involved with, but close with, that they were already investigating. So they thought I was the key and the missing link, and that I would be able to provide them substantial assistance. And I was not, but I was actually greatly disturbed and of even the possibility of, oh, you just take a 1-year silent ban in providing information. I was like, if I'm an athlete looking to dope, like I would just surround myself with other people and, doctors and doping groups, because then I'm protected. Because even if I get caught, I just rat everyone else. Like it's not good. I don't like this system. It keeps everyone in the dark. You don't know what's happening. An athlete gets injured for a year. Now suspicion's going up. Someone just retires in their prime age, and when they're doing well, now you're suspicious. All right, how did we get here? Let's get back. Let's get back to peptides. Oh, we're talking about growth hormone, and then we're talking about Miguel Lopez. All right, let's keep going. I've seen this one before. I've used this one before. HGH 176191. It's actually growth hormone has like 191 amino acid chain. And then you can also break those apart in different pieces. Basically, those amino acids are instructions to like, hey, do this. Hey, create more growth hormone. This specific one, 176 of the 191, so 176 long, is more the fat loss one. I don't know how they are testing for these anyway, but I know they do test. Not as often as you might think, because otherwise you'd see a lot of athletes being caught with these. This one's popular among gym goers, bodybuilders, the GHRH, and its analogs CJC 1293 and 1295. Samorelin, Tesamorelin. These are all very popular peptides. In the longevity community, fitness, bodybuilding, wellness. And I think there's an appropriate place to be using these for health and for longevity. But in professional sport, it is banned. It's not allowed. Here we go. MK677. I have some of that. I was never using that as an athlete, but now I can use whatever I want. And speed recovery. Yeah, I remember I'm getting very hungry on it, so I'm eating more. of other people taking that. Let's keep going. Growth factors. Interesting, right? We go from a page very specific ones here into very non-specific. These are just categories. It's like, hey, just don't take these fibroblast growth factors. Don't take these. Don't take IGF. IGF. This is what I've the Balco, the Balco scandal long ago. They were taking the IGF ones. So sprinters would take them to improve their sprint performance. Anything like the insulin growth factor, you start to take those, you'll be able to shuttle in more nutrients into your cell faster. I don't know if there's a place for endurance athletes taking those, but definitely sprinters. This is an interesting one, been used a lot. And as far as I know, nobody's tested positive for insulin growth factors. And even I've heard of people, athletes taking just straight insulin before their races. TB500, I have seen this one around. Again, I think it's another one for recovery from injuries, vascular endothelial growth factors. There we go. We can naturally increase these with sauna. You should do that. You don't even need to take this. Other growth factors, right? But the thing is, there's growth factors everywhere. Wow, look at this. If I don't know specifically what it is, but regenerative capacity or fiber type switching growth factors. What are those? That's interesting. You could turn like an endurance athlete to a sprinter or a sprinter to an endurance athlete. Fiber type switching. Beta 2 antagonists. There we go. This is a hot one. This is the category where the most endurance athletes are also have TUEs for asthma because of this class right there. It's prohibited in and out of competition at all times, but there are exceptions. Salmeterol, salbuterol. There we go. You can take those inhalers up to 1,600 micrograms over 24 hours in divided doses. And then you can inhale formoterol and salmeterol. And this one here, vilanterol, all according to their guidelines in and out of competition. And that's why you see so many athletes pumping on those inhalers. And then if you exceed those, you're going to need a TUE. If you use the other ones, you're going to need a TUE. Here we go. The presence in urine in excess of 1,000 nanograms per milliliter, which it was different, was changed because this is the Chris Froome case. He exceeded back then the 1,200 nanograms per milliliter of salbutamol. And that is not consistent with a therapeutic use of a substance. So it's considered an adverse analytical finding. Unless the athlete proves through a controlled pharmacokinetic study that the abnormal result was the consequences of a therapeutic dose by inhalation up to a maximum dose indicated. Very interesting case, Chris Froome. Basically, 2 days before the Tour de France start in July, and they just dismissed his case entirely because he was so pivotal to the Tour de France movement that persuasion. The UCI dropped their case, and then WADA was like, okay, I guess we'll accept it. I mean, they're not going to fight. WADA is a coward. That's pretty much saying they're not going to stand up and be like, no, like he actually got caught doping, but he's this pivotal figure in our sport. So yeah, I think that's what happened there. So anyway, salbuterol, you can increase power, increase lung capacity, it targets the tissues of the lungs, and really opens up airways, allows blood to flow more freely. Hormone metabolic modulators, prohibited at all times. Aromatase inhibitors, they inhibit the enzyme aromatase, which converts androgens into estrogens. So these are going to basically boost natural testosterone by blocking the conversion into estrogen. We got all these popular in the PCT cycle, post-cycle therapy. So if you are, we're talking just people taking steroid cycles, bodybuilding, weightlifting, whatever you want. This is the popular class to, when you're done, to bring your natural testosterone cycles back up. Anastrozole, boom. letrozole. I don't know any of these. I don't think anyone should be taking these as an athlete. I mean, it's pretty easy to test for. And then you've got your anti-estrogenic substances. So basically blocking, same concept. We're trying to like block the estrogen, so more of it is testosterone. You got clomiphene. I believe there's a triathlete recently positive for clomiphene. Let's just double check. There it is. Thomas Rodriguez Hernandez, winner of the 2024 Ironman Texas, suspended and later banned only for 2 years. Interesting. After an in-competition test. He claimed the result was due to consuming contaminated chicken and eggs. Wow. But he was still banned for 2 years. Ultra triathlete from Poland. Where is this? 8-year ban in 2025 for a second anti-doping violation, which included positive for clomiphene. Wow, why are all these? Another one. Derek Felix Alfornali, Brazilian age grouper, banned 2 years, 2024, testing positive for clomiphene out of competition. So people are using it, but it also looks like it's easily tested for. Don't take it. Hormone metabolic modulators. Agents preventing ACE-031. I've heard of this one. Myostatin inhibitors. So why are myostatin inhibitors performance enhancing? Let's find out. Myostatin inhibitors are a class of substance that block natural protein myostatin, which ordinarily limit muscle growth. WADA has banned myostatin inhibitors because they're used in rapid muscle growth. This is funny. In animal studies, resulted in significant increases in muscle size, leading to the nickname double muscling. Great effect and interest to bodybuilders seeking to bypass genetic limitations. Difficult to detect. For some substances, their temporary presence in the body can make them challenging to detect during routine drug tests, which increase their appeal for illicit use. All right, myostatin inhibitors. There you go, learn something new. I think this is a great resource for all things you want to learn. Just look it up. Metabolic modulators. This is a popular one too. AMP-K, activated protein kinase. This one right there, ICAR. Let's look this up. So ICAR, I've been very interested in. It's a metabolic modulator. As far as I know, let's see if anyone's been banned from it. Well, ICAR is a banned substance. No specific elite athletes have publicly defended being linked to a positive test for it. So it's very difficult to actually nail down a positive test. It's banned in 2009. Reported heavy use in cycling associated with doping rings. Even in 2024, investigation 2024 revealed that a Kenyan runner turned undercover agent exposed a doping ring where ICAR was being used by elite athletes. Well, what's this doping ring? And this is exactly what I meant with that WADA substantial assistance. When I sat down with USADA, they too wanted me to become an undercover agent. They were telling me that they have undercover agents right now in the field, someone who had tested positive and then used as an agent. They're using that leverage saying, hey, you have to come work for us. Otherwise, we're going to reveal your positive test. Holding that over that athlete. The athlete is not free at all. Freedom is just telling the truth. Crazy. Okay, so nobody's been banned from ICAR. Improves endurance, improves mitochondria, improves energy. Another one, all of these. MOTS-C, I've taken this one before. Mitochondria derived peptide. Naturally occurring peptide regulates metabolism, insulin sensitivity, body's response to stress and aging, popular in the anti-aging world. MOTS-C, yes, prohibited by WADA. It is approved. No, it is not approved from the FDA for human use. There's a lot of things not approved from the FDA. MOTS-C, short peptide, reducing inflammation. I love that. Adaptation to stress and aging. MOTS-C, should definitely be being used in that way for good, for longevity. If you're not a professional athlete, right, you should be taking stuff that's going to make you healthy, live longer, be happier. That's why we all get into these recreational sports as well. It's for our own longevity, health, and happiness. So make the most of it. As far as I know, no athlete has ever tested positive for MOTS-c. I believe it's actually hard to test for. You'd have to specifically, see, liquid chromatography and mass spectrometry. It's a very expensive test to be doing. They're not going to be doing that in their normal screening at all. Oh, another one. Here we go. GW1516 and the other one, GW501516. I think this is really the doping that's happening right now is on a gene and cellular level, because we're not seeing, in endurance and cycling and triathlon, we're not seeing these giant mutants that we saw who were jacked in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Even early 2000s, these like triathletes and cyclists were jacked because they were taking all these anabolic steroids and stimulants. And now it's more into like, okay, so let's look at the mitochondria in the cell and like get really hyper efficient with our use of energy and glucose and fat metabolism. I've heard of these before. I believe I've seen some athletes possibly test positive for those. Insulin mimics, we talked about that. We got melodium. And this one's interesting. Trimethazine. There's a whole controversial case right now. Nairo Quintana and the team, I believe it was like one of the Tour de France's 2022. They got the hotels raided, and initial reports was that they found trimethazine, TMZ, metabolic modulator. See, there's a lot of categories right there. Inhibiting fat acid metabolism. It's been banned. Detected in urine. It's very easily detectable. Why did they have that? But then turns out that wasn't actually the thing. Colombian cyclist Nairo Quintana was not linked to this, but initially was. There was a mix-up. Why was there a mix-up? What they found, and that there was a lot more that they found involved into this. But they basically stripped him of his sixth place overall finish Tour de France because they found actually it was tramadol. So there's massive confusion, right? How could this even happen? It's the wrong drug. But tramadol at the time wasn't even banned. So he lost his place at Tour de France, but he was not given a formal doping ban because tramadol was not on the WADA prohibited list. That makes no sense. How can you be banned from something in the race, but then not given a ban for the sport? He appealed this, but then was dismissed. So who knows? There's so much we don't know that's going on. We just, if you're looking at the headlines and the news, you're just in the dark. Completely in the dark. Keep going. Diuretics, masking agents. Why would you want a diuretic? Well, let's find out. Diuretics make you pee a lot, but then also there's plasma expanders, right? By intravenous administration. This is how you mask doping. Mask blood doping is because you're basically diluting all the levels of whatever drugs are in your body, because then you have more water coming in. Albumin, dextrin, all that just basically says, hey, we're going to bring in more water into that cell, dilute the plasma, dilute all of it. People have gotten away with, using anabolic steroids, all this stuff, but then they test positive for diuretics, so it's the same consequence. Fighters often are using diuretics. Can I cut weight? Prohibited again. Oh, blood manipulation. This is massive. The administration, reintroduction of any quantity of autologous, allogenic, heterologous blood, red blood cells of any origin into the circulatory system, or any withdrawal of the blood and then doing artificial purposes and then putting it back. So your ozone therapy, that's banned. Your methylene blue treatment, banned. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Here's a popular one. The artificial enhancing uptake, transport, delivery of oxygen, not limited to this perfluorochemicals, which increases, your oxygen carrying capacity is. And then you got your modified hemoglobin products, hemoglobin based substitutes. That's been used, recently found with the Operation Aderlass to have been involved there. But Operation Aderlass, that's been exposed that people have been using the artificial hemoglobin. And then just the classic, it's always been around, still never left. The classic blood doping rings, which the most recent one was Operation Aderlass in Germany, Austria, Slovenia. And so you're basically taking blood out. And then once you get your bag of blood, centrifuge all the plasma out, separate the plasma from the red blood cells. And now you have packed red blood cells. And those you can store in a freezer for a very long time. And they're labeled all their separate code names. Whenever you're pre-competition, you can pull one out, thaw it out, hang it up, put it back in. Right. And so during that time that you've been out, your body's naturally built up more red blood cells so that when you put them back in, now you've got an extra boost. And there's no way to detect that. I mean, you have to be caught red-handed, or your blood doping ring has to be caught, which is what happened in this last case. So I think that's still the gold standard right there. I mean, no, you will not ever fail a drug test. And as far as the passport, the blood ABP, right? That's the athlete biological passport, which they developed many years ago, is very ineffective. There's been like no bans. I mean, very little bans because of that. And even in Spain, I looked this up. It's called Operation Ilex. Operation Ilex report suggests athletes are still gaming the system because we'll get into that. But let's go into this guy here. eBay Salas, athlete biological passport case, got dismissed in the court of Spain because Spain does not recognize that the athlete biological passport is effective proof to be banned for doping. So he overturned his doping ban because Spain was like, nah, we're not going to uphold it. So, wow, relativism around the world. We operate, wherever you are in the world, you're operating with what you know. But another country is doing it something totally different. And in Russia, they're forcing athletes to use drugs. And then Spain, they're saying, hey, we actually don't even uphold the standard doping measures, in our country. But, other athletes in other countries can get caught with ABP. But in our country, nope, not going to happen. So he was actually awarded, 309,000 euros in compensation. Look at this. Now 32, Sal's retired from the sports. Now works as a decorator. Anyway, not fun to do. Lengthy legal battle. Biological passport rejected as proof of doping, Spanish court. Crazy, but his connection was in Operation Ilex. It just shows in Spain, the testing, what is it, that they don't do any testing over the weekend or like in the labs. They're not processing in the labs. So another problem for doping controllers is a requirement for samples to be delivered for analysis within 48 hours of collection is a major problem for some countries that have few accredited laboratories. And, the privacy laws in Spain prohibit doping controls in athletes between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., a period long enough for some drugs to leave the system. There's all these windows, right? Like if they're not processing doping samples on the weekends, they're not going to make that 48-hour testing window because once you get that blood sample, urine sample, you have to bring it back to the laboratory and get it, checked in controlled setting. Otherwise, that test is rendered invalid. And so now we look at Africa and South America, and they each only have one WADA accredited lab in South America and one accredited lab in Africa, making it very difficult for the 48-hour delivery. And even in Spain, blood samples, right here, even in Spain, blood samples can only be drawn until noon on Thursday for out-of-competition testing to meet a 48-hour window because on the weekends, they don't process. So from Thursday night to Sunday, they can do whatever they want because almost certainly no one will check them. Wow. It's wild. as cycling has already found therapeutic use exemptions, or another way riders can legally take performance-enhancing drugs like corticosteroids. We'll get into that without being punished. All right, we just got down that rabbit hole. Let's get back. Blood doping. This is where we've seen the most athletes caught from like organized crime situations and from military, from government, from police, from raids. We're not seeing athletes test positive for actual blood doping because there's no tests. And the only way to really get it is get people in action and get people live doing it, caught on camera, raw evidence. Nicholas Radunsky, it was like, he was like, how do we get these people? And I'm like, well, you're not going to just test them to death. Like, they're already beating your tests. You have to get a private investigator and get substantial evidence, right? Like the Miguel and Lopez case, never tested positive, but had evidence of possession. And then they'll be cut down. But they're not willing to do that. Anti-doping agencies are not willing to go that far as to hire private investigators, which is really how you're going to bring down people, as we've seen. The Guardia Civil in Spain, like, they've brought down a ton of rings. We will keep moving, but just here, even any form of intravascular manipulation of blood or blood components by physical chemical means, very vague, but meaning everything you do of changing your blood. And then right here, I know a lot of athletes don't know this, this is certainly at a recreational level, but intravenous infusions, so IVs. We know Ryan Lochte, he got banned because he posted a selfie of him hooked up to an IV bag. Guess what? That's banned. Even if it's just water, saline, banned. Intravenous infusions or injections more than 100 milliliters per 12-hour period for those legitimately received in the course of hospital treatments. It's wild. If you got time, look at the whole Alberto Salazar case. There's a bunch of documents on that. They were doing large doses of L-carnitine infusions, 26 grams of L-carnitine sitting there in the bag for the athletes, and they were improving their threshold paces like a significant amount. Again, that's banned. No athletes got banned, but the coach did. Curious. So, I mean, to keep on looking again, history repeats itself. WADA, USADA, ITA, anti-doping agencies, they don't really care about the athletes. They just want to bring down the doctors, the coaches. I mean, and even one of the newer laws we have in the United States, like, they go after those providing doping products to athletes, not the athletes themselves. Prohibited methods, gene and cell doping. Wow. Okay. This is the future of doping. It's probably happening already. I don't know it, but it probably is. The use of normal genetically modified cells or cell components, such as mitochondria or ribosines, use of nucleic acids. The technology is already here, and the very select few who have access to it, it's scary. Like, we'll just keep going. Again, when you find stuff like this, very vague, non-descriptive things, there are no tests. But because they don't even know. They don't want to know. They definitely don't want to know. Stimulants here, right? Prohibited in competition, not out of competition. So stimulants, they've been used a long, long time ago, since the beginning. Cyclists putting suppositories up their butt, like all this stuff, because you feel like you have more energy, and so you're like, I have more energy. It's kind of faded away, and I don't know too many people. I know a lot of people getting off of stimulants just because of the harmful effects they have on the body. So a lot of these pre-workouts, like, look at this list. It's just so many things. Just stay away from any scary pre-workouts, because likely this stuff is going to be in them. Pseudoephedrine, like, I don't know any of these. I wouldn't bother with them. There are exceptions. They're very fine print. Like, look at this. We've got some here. Erythropoietin, never heard of that. Caffeine, nicotine, no way. They can't ban caffeine and nicotine. That's on the monitoring, the 2026 monitoring program. In what world would an athlete abide to any rules that say you can't have caffeine or nicotine? I know so many addicts, myself included. And then there's some, ephedrine stuff. I think because that's in like cough syrup and all that, they have all these exceptional asterisks being like, if it's greater than this amount, it's probably like they've done the studies to see what a dose of cough syrup would be in your body and then said, hey, anything above that, we just want the abuse of it. Like nobody's chugging cough syrup and going running an Ironman. Like that's not going to help. That's going to destroy your race. So they know that, at least they're doing something about it. So there's some exceptions. Narcotics. Don't do those. That's not enhancing performance. Tramadol. I did use that. I abused that for several years. Don't do that. But now, back then, right, tramadol, just like Nairo Quintana, like I was using tramadol in races because it wasn't banned. I always heard the cyclists were using it. The cyclists were taking too much and like causing crashes in the peloton because they were like losing control and crazy. So right now, you cannot use tramadol in competition. Out of competition, yes. These don't do morphine in racing. I don't even know how you could race with morphine. Fentanyl, definitely don't do that. Heroin, don't do this during races. You'll die, even not racing. Cannabinoids, no, you still can't be high. I think the limits are higher, but yeah, you can't be doing THC in racing. Ooh, this is a great class. Glucocorticoids prohibited in competition, right? So here's the in competition. If you're trying to improve your performance, you're out of competition, you can use a lot of these. I used methylprednisone, prednisolone, triamcinolone acetonide, all these, fluticasone, cortisone, improve recovery, help you train harder. Oh, dexamethasone, that's used in altitude acclimation. I've used that climbing mountains. So like these have, uses, good uses outside of, you shouldn't abuse these. You should be taking these to train harder like I was. Probably not the smartest thing to do. But interesting. Let's dive into this one right here. So triamcinolone acetonide. This is a cool story. Let's get into that. Let's get in right here. This is the Team Sky. So Fancy Bears hackers. It's like 2016, the Russian hackers. They hacked into the databases of athletes and found their therapeutic use exemptions and leaked that to the world. And that's why we now know some exciting stuff. The Bradley Wiggins, Chris Froome, Team Sky, Brailsford doping. So this was the hackers, the TUEs for corticosteroids. Bradley Wiggins, who awesome, loved watching him race. Bradley Wiggins, his TUEs revealed he had the triamcinolone before the 2011, 2012 Tour de France and 2013 Giro d'Italia, which he won, all right before the race, like right before. It's a medication used for hay fever, asthma, and allergies. But when I've used it, I mean, you become like, you get so lean, your body just eats away at itself, but you retain so much power. So your power to weight ratio right here, right? Anonymous testimony suggested the drug was used to improve riders' power to weight ratio. It does. I've used it before in training, right? Like, because you're allowed to use it at a competition, but not in competition. So you have to, yeah, but Bradley Wiggins knew how powerful it was, so he got the TUE so he could use it in competition because therapeutic use exemption. Interesting to note, he did it before all three. Then there was a study by UK Parliament Committee. They crossed the ethical line by abusing, right? Using the TUE system to enhance performance rather than for medical necessity. We got the Jiffy Lube scandal. We got this one here. Richard Freeman has a ban. He's a doctor. Team Sky doctor. He was banned, and then he had this evidence right here. UKAD investigation could not confirm its contents due to lack of medical records. The team's doctor, Richard Freeman, claimed the laptop was stolen. Curious. Operation Puerto, Spain. All the evidence on the Spanish cyclists, tennis players, triathletes burned. Just destroy the evidence. Anyway, worth noting, triamcinolone acetate. I think there was a runner recently tested positive after winning a marathon. Let's just find out. Let's confirm. Runner, where it is, Diana Kipioki, stripped of Boston Marathon, tested positive in 2021. 6-year ban. Gotta get that TUE. So yeah, these are powerful class of drugs. These are not steroids, right? They actually, the opposite, they break you down. So why athletes are craving this? Endurance athletes, because they want to be light and fast, increase that power to weight ratio, recover faster, reduce pain. Long-term use, definitely not good. Beta blockers. We're just going to skip over this. I mean, this is actually slowing the heart rate down. I mean, this is what's used in archery, shooting, golf, but these are in competition only for the following sports. So it's not really anything useful if you're endurance athlete or bodybuilding. And that's it. I mean, now we have the index. Let's go into this case. Has a lot to go through. I mentioned it on the blood doping ring. It's the recent blood doping ring operation Aderlass, based on out of Erfurt based German physician Mark Schmidt. So Dr. Mark Schmidt. Right now there's 21 athletes named and under suspicion. There are a lot of skiers and cyclists. I want to bring attention to how large this ring actually spreads and how much we are kept in the dark by sporting federations, by anti-doping federations. Everyone, even WADA, their money speaks. They're a business. Everyone's a business. And so when something threatens their business, they put in their code, they have the discretion to make it silent, to make it go away. So when we're looking at cycling, it's too bad. Some of these people were sentenced to prison. Look at that. Denfil receiving 24-month prison sentence. That's wild. In the United States, we do not have doping is not criminalized, but I guess in Austrian court, doping is criminalized. Be careful. Danilo Hondo confessed to having used blood doping. So this is that ring where, again, the doctor's taking blood out, storing it, sending it out, putting it back in, improving performance, not testing positive. So Danilo Hondo, this guy right here, German, former professional racer, Olympics. He confessed to working with them. He was also, right? So he was riding for this team, Lampere ISD at the time, a cycling team, and he was subsequently fired from his job as coach for the Swiss Cycling Federation. Someone with major connections with blood doping rings working as coach for the Swiss Cycling Federation. Now we're going to go through, here's another, this is all the same operation Aderlass. Slovenian cyclist, road racer, boom, now on Bahrain Merida. This guy, Croatian, on Emirates. And then we got Borut Bozic, Slovenian, former professional cyclist. Look at all these teams. Bahrain, Astana, Cofidis. And he was, implicated and suspended. So Bozic, he was working as the director of Sportif for Bahrain Merida. Just an example here of how much is going on that we don't know. I mean, he was fired, obviously, from his director of Sportif, but crazy. And this was all in that 2019 timeframe. And this was out of Erfurt, Germany. But a lot of Slovenians and Austrians were also taking part into this. And there was another prominent, how much we don't know. Let's go back to, right, 10.7.1.2. Athletes who are giving substantial assistance, which is absolutely subjective, can have no period of ineligibility, no mandatory public disclosure, and or no return of prize money or payment of fines or costs. There's a prominent cyclist, Marcel Kittel, age 31, just retired out of the blue. And when you look up Mark Schmidt's hometown, Erfurt, and let's look up Marcel Kittel. They were neighbors. Retired German cyclist Marcel Kittel has strong connection to Erfurt, capital of the German state. That was his hometown. He was born in a nearby town. He was neighbors with Mark Schmidt. And he had a very odd retirement. Makes you think, makes you wonder, what do you know? What do you not know? All right, that's all we have. That is the 2026 WADA prohibited list. Broke down some categories. I hope you learned what these things are, why they are on here. If you want more, comment below. If you want to learn more information, just put it all in the comments, DM me on Instagram. Happy to talk through this more. Have a good one.